Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it appears that Kuro Games is in a rather spoilery mood this 3.2 update. It appears that while they've gone ahead and spent half the patch going ahead and advertising for all of the new units that we're going to be seeing in version 3.3, it turns out they're going to be doing even more advertising in some other game modes. Because due to a reveal that we've had in the most recent Whimpering Waste reset, well, ladies and gentlemen, it is basically 100% confirmed what we're going to be seeing in Hiyuki's kit. And it's pretty clear that the predictions that I made about this unit, right, with some of the stuff that she was going to be doing, the crazy stuff on the battlefield, I said one thing when it came to predicting what she was going to do. I said that she was going to be oriented around debuffs, and I said that she was going to be a Glacio Chafe character. And it turns out that bet that I made, that bold claim before any leaks at all came out anywhere, well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like I was right, because we've got the cradle that holds the void. This is what the debuff, or this is what the new token is called over here. And this has some very, very specific effects. So let's read what they say. Resonators recover additional ember. That's basically a way to deal more damage in Whimpering Waste when they inflict negative statuses on enemies, triggered up to once per second. Kind of general over here, but don't worry, it'll get more specific later. And resonators in the team gain 50% Glacio damage bonus. But Saint, there's no character in the game that's a Glacio negative status character. That's because they're coming out next patch, dipshit. And this Whimpering Waste reset is going to persist into the anniversary update. And guess who's the first banner character of the anniversary update, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, it's going to be Hiyuki. Yes, the Glacio sword user is going to be the first unit on the reset, first unit on the anniversary banner. So now, reading more, they gained a 50% Glacio damage bonus and spectral damage bonus, so that, like, I guess Zani has something going on with her. I still don't know if she can actually use this. And enemies take 200% more total Glacio Chafe damage. So when there's no Glacio Chafe character in the game, this Whimpering Waste reset is still going to be active during 3.3 when it launches, and Hiyuki is a confirmed Glacio character. Ladies and gentlemen, this is full confirmation from Kuro Games themselves that this Glacio Sword unit is also going to be a Glacio Chafe unit. And that probably changes a lot of things for a lot of people. We can already start talking about the potential pull value of this character immediately, because we already have a lot of the building blocks. We already have a lot of these sort of like ingredients for a negative status team ready to go right off of the bat. And so let's just go ahead. Let's start having this discussion over here. So essentially, when it comes to Hiyuki and when it comes to Glacio Chafe and all of that, her pull value as a unit and her overall strength is 99% likely to be dictated by whether or not you have this other Japanese character. And the reason for this is very, very, very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Chisa is the premium negative status support. And a lot of people probably at a baseline made the expectation that, like, I think the Japanese unit from here is going to work with the Japanese unit that's already in game. Well, I guess you were right, ladies and gentlemen, because what Chisa does is she provides an outro skill over here that essentially increases the stack limit of negative statuses by 3. And for Glacio Chafe in particular, we're going to take some time to actually pull up its effects so you guys know exactly how it works. Glacio Chafe actually operates very similarly to Fusion Burst, but we've only had the opportunity to have it inflicted on us by enemies like the Lampy Lumen, enemies like the Sentry Construct up until now. So the way that it operates is actually very simple. When Glacio Chafe is inflicted, the target receives Glacio damage, and it stacks up to 10 times, and the higher the stacks, the more damage dealt, and each stack reduces the target's movement speed and maybe attack speed too, who knows. And when Glacio Chafe reaches max stacks, the target's frozen, and then all of the stacks will be removed. And so you might be thinking, oh, doesn't like increasing the stack limit make it feel like a lot weaker because you'll see them less? Well, this is the case. When having a higher stack limit also means that you're going to be dealing more damage, then it's very, very, very likely, right, that having this higher stack limit is going to be the main way for Hiyuki's Glacio Chafe to even deal damage in the first place. And the biggest example of this is, unfortunately, just showing off this character Ameth over here. Yeah, Ameth on like Fusion Burst mode is already like a steaming pile of shit. It's just not good because we don't have the Fusion Burst sub DPS. Using her on Fusion Burst mode without Chisa is one of the biggest disasters in gacha history. Like, straight up, I've never seen a character look and operate so badly on their own. And the reason for that is very simple. Because Fusion Burst damage increases by a lot as that stack limit goes from 10 to 13. And Glacio Chafe is going to operate in likely a very, very, very similar sort of way. With how that damage increase from the damage over time effect that occurs, it's going to get much higher, way higher, when you go from stacks 10 to stacks 11, 12, 13. And apparently, people have done the calculations. Without Chisa on the Fusion Burst team over here, your damage from the Fusion Burst, like, activations, it's cut in half. So you can kind of view it this way. Hiyuki. Based off the fact that Glacio Chafe is likely going to be in her kit, and it's likely going to be one of the main damage types that she has, because it's kind of like a tertiary damage effect, right? If you don't have Chisa, you're likely going to be in for a really, really, really rough fucking ride when it comes to building out a Hiyuki team. And I think the news that this character is Glacio Chafe, and I think the news, even though she is an anniversary unit, that she's going to have some reliance on other units on the roster, I think it's good to receive that way earlier rather than later. Naturally, the live stream's only like 4 or 5 days away, and that's where we're probably going to get some confirmation over here as to, well, the Glacio Chafe part of her kit. But receiving it even like 5 days earlier, well, that just helps planning, right? That just helps the sort of like process for people as they get ready for some of the anniversary pulls. Because guess what? Denya is another character that's going to be releasing in 3.3 in its second half specifically. And, well, just guess what Denya's kit, right? Chromatic Foam. Yes, Denya literally has colored bubbles in her kit, and Chromatic Foam is all about applying Fusion Burst. Basically, both of these anniversary units, Hiyuki and Denya, are going to be really, really centered on negative statuses. I think that much is pretty obvious. And so Chisa essentially is going to be the must-pull character for most people thinking about the anniversary and thinking about their pulling plans ahead. And that could be unfortunate for a lot of people because chances are maybe you don't have this unit, because nobody could blame you for not having this character. You want to know why? Because she has been, without a doubt, the most useless unit in the game since her release, where you, by pulling her on her release, it was a net loss to your account, basically bricking your fucking account, because she was absolutely unnecessary on any team. She only had one team in the game where she wasn't a strict downgrade, and that was the Arrow Rover Arrow Erosion team with Kartithia and Chikona. And guess what, guys? Arrow Rover was better than Chisa in this team unless Chisa had her signature and a full-on high-quality build. Unless you had all of those various ingredients ready to go, guys, Arrow Rover with their free weapon and all of that was better than Chisa, but only by a couple of percentage points. That was the difference. Chisa was like 5, maybe 7% better than Arrow Rover, even with her signature. And so you were paying for the smallest upgrade ever from an existing free-to-play team, or really an existing free-to-play option. So the end result, absolute disaster. Super low value, terrible idea for most people to pull. But now with the news that Hiyuki is essentially confirmed to be Glacio Chafe, Denya has been confirmed to be Fusion Burst, well, that could change the conversation dramatically. However, there's another issue at hand. And the issue over here is kind of simple, ladies and gentlemen. There's no Glacio Chafe sub DPS in the game. There is no Glacio Chafe sub DPS in the game unless Hiyuki ends up being like the sub DPS, and then we actually don't have the main DPS for the archetype. Because, well, guess what? Like, unless Denya happens to be a like dual version character, a dual resonance mode character, and her other mode is Glacio Chafe, well, then who's gonna be the third member of this team? Is there just a possibility, right, that like Hiyuki just ends up becoming Ameth version 2? Where Ameth's Fusion Burst mode is still the biggest pile of steaming dog shit in the game because the sub DPS was never there? You know that that's a fact as well, ladies and gentlemen, right? You know that that is a glaring possibility too, that Hiyuki could just end up becoming exactly the same as Ameth. And unless Hiyuki happens to have like dual resonance modes as well, then there's going to be a massive issue. But this is also the other thing, right? And this is maybe another clue that we have based off of these Whimpering Waste tokens. Go ahead and take a look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, this Frostlands where Baroness Thrives tokens, right? Which is clearly geared towards buffing Toon Strain as well as Toon Rupture is still here. Maybe Hiyuki's gonna have a Toon Strain or a Toon Rupture mode. That could be something that also is a part of her kit. She might have that sort of like dual resonance ability that Imith has as well. But this is the thing. Maybe not. Maybe Hiyuki doesn't have that ability because what is something you're not seeing in here? 40% spectral damage bonus for Luke and then 40% fusion damage bonus for Amith. And so take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't see a Glacio damage bonus in here. And so this kind of just makes me think that Glacio Chafe is going to be the only mode that Hiyuki actually has. Otherwise, we might have probably seen this updated to also include Glacio damage if Hiyuki had that flexibility in her kit. I think that this is another confirmation from Kuro Games. The fact that this doesn't have that this is the only Glacio related token for the patch that Hiyuki is going to be dropping in. This might just be confirmation from Kuro Games that Hiyuki is, well, a single damage type character, and that single damage type is Glacio Chafe. And that's going to come with a lot of restrictions. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this video over here is more of just like an educational opportunity because we're talking about pull value. We're talking about negative statuses. And the reality is very simple. Negative status characters have, unfortunately, had the reputation of being some of the most team locked and like mandatory pulls required characters in the game. Cardathea without Chakota, buns, dog shit. Zani without Phoebe, buns, dog shit. And chances are Hiyuki without Chisa, buns, dog shit, right? And so this might be just a cautionary tale of maybe you don't need this character. Maybe you really gotta heavily think about how you've been saving across the version. Maybe this character is actually a skip because the news that she is Glacio Chafe, and again, the unfortunate reality of it not looking like she's gonna have another resonance mode, this might mean that she's a lot more constrained, has way more limited team comps, or way more specific teammates than you might have thought before. Hiyuki might actually be a gigantic bait because think about it this way, right? This is something that's been done on the anniversary before, right? A lot of people, they went in and they were just like, ooh, got my overworked low energy mommy over here with Zodi, right? Guess what ended up happening with her? She's one of the worst fucking pulls in the game, and a lot of people wish they could refund her because her teams are so locked, so specific, and she has so little reusability outside of being tied to the hip to this acolyte over here. Phoebe has like 7 times more teams than Zani. That's a fact. Phoebe has like 7 more teams than Zani does. Zani has like 1 or 2. It's a bit of a disaster, right? And Hiyuki, depending on how her kit works, looks like she might end up the exact same way. And the hype of the anniversary, right? And the hype of her being one of the most visually crazy, right? Visually appealing characters that we've ever seen, where she has 2 forms and all of that. She summons a fucking moon, right? She does all this crazy shit. Then she summons like 17 other versions of herself too. During her liberation, you can see like she has like Chisa's outfit on over here with like a baseball bat and stuff like that. Clearly, right? There's a lot of hype surrounding this character. You got the cherry blossoms and all that shit in her animation as well. She got the bow too. She's wild. She's crazy. And apparently her cutscene at 3.2 is also insane as well. But she might just be one of, if not the biggest baits in the game, just like how Zani was one of the biggest baits that we've ever had in the history of the game. And that is an unfortunate reality, right, when it comes to negative status teams. But there is a possibility, right, that Kuro's gonna go ahead, make her way more flexible than we actually thought, right, and wash away that sort of negative stigma that's been associated with negative status teams for a very long time. Because Kuro basically got away with it by making Amith Fusion Burst, right? They got away with it because she's still got the Toon Rupture mode, and she's still insanely, well, she's the best fucking team in the game. She's insanely viable without even thinking about her Fusion Burst half at all. But I don't think that same sort of flexibility is going to apply to Hiyuki. Because remember what I said before, guys. It doesn't look like Hiyuki's going to have like a resonance mode, because otherwise we'd probably be seeing glacial damage over here in the tokens. And we don't. So this might be all she has. And the unfortunate reality is, well, we'll just have to see how she pans out. We'll just have to see how team locked or team specific she is, because typically units that really need and can't do anything without another character, they typically can be some of the most undesirable units in the game, no matter how much damage they do. For example, all we gotta do is take a look at the sales of a unit like her. Because guess who you need to make Sigrika playable? Chu Yan. And if she doesn't have Chu Yan, this character doesn't really exist, right? This character has, quite possibly, the highest damage potential in the game. She might deal the most damage in the game, but people just skip her, right? They don't want to pull her because, well, she's just kind of like mid character design wise, but they gotta pull a dude. And she basically needs this dude on the team for her to function. And while having Chisa, right, is definitely less of a barrier for most gooners out there, because I know it's mostly gooners playing this game, is less of a barrier than pulling Chu Yan, it's still looking like a full necessity to have Chisa to make this character do anything at all. But maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe Kuro Games is going to really up the flexibility, take away the negative status stigma, make the, you know, cleanse the reputation a good bit, and I'll be happy to eat crow then. But all I really can do at this point, right, is take a look at the track record. Take a look at what they've already done before. And when it comes to negative statuses, bro, they have felt like they've all shipped incomplete. They felt like they've all shipped with problems. And the characters, the DPSs that end up dealing negative status damage, well, their teams feel like some of the most restrictive ones in the game. And that's a fact. That's the truth. And Imeth is the best one out of all of them because she could just say fuck negative statuses and pretend they don't exist. And I guess this is the other thing, right? Think about it this way. If Chisa is a mandatory pull because of her support of negative statuses, right? And you're using her with Hiyuki, well then guess what? Who are you going to use with your Fusion Burst Imeth?
A laser sword.
Who are you going to use with your Cardathea? You got Arrow Rover for this team, sure. But like, let's just say you want to play Fusion Burst Imeth with Denya and Chisa, but then like, you need Chisa for your Hiyuki. Do you kind of already see where the problems might be forming roster-wise? Like, we don't even have the full teams yet, but you can already see that Chisa might start getting pulled into like 17,000 different directions. And so if Hiyuki really does have that reliability on her, but then Denya Imeth in the Fusion Burst team also wants her, and then we're also in the situation where in the hardest endgame mode that we have, End State Matrix, right? Well, you're only allowed to use Chisa one time because she only has one energy, right? Looky over here. She only has one energy in this game mode. All the other supports have two. You can look at the record over here. Chisa was used just one time in this team, and she has not been able to be used again. This is a potential disaster that I already see forming. She probably needs to get 2 energy in this game mode because you're already probably seeing how she's going to be stretched thin in just like TOA at a baseline and Whimpering Waste at a baseline. I'm going to be honest. This could pan out a lot worse than we thought, but maybe we need to have some confidence in Kuro Games. My solution was give this character a resonance mode where she deals like toon strain damage or something. It doesn't look like that's happening though. So be wary, be ready to pivot. Most importantly of all, be ready to pivot too, because this anniversary could be maybe you won't be spending as much on this anniversary as you might have thought, especially with more details of those kits coming out. Let me know what you all thought about this one. Let me know what you are thinking about when it comes to your Hiyuki pulley plans, and peace out.